A demonstration of our document management module. So the first thing you need to do is to log into your account, right? So, all right, the menu on top here is where you use to browse. Let's just look at documents. Within the documents listing, you can create files and folders as is necessary. So let's just go to users. We're currently logged in as the admin user, and let's give this user access to all groups. So in in our module, we have a groups feature, and the groups are representation of users or groups of users within your organization. Permissions on documents and folders are granted directly to a group. So if a user, let's say Joshua, is a part of the administrators group, whatever documents this administrator's group or folders that this administrator's group have access to, Joshua would automatically have access to, right? So you can go ahead and add or update groups here. And to assign a user to a group, you go to the user screen and you can just edit the user and select which groups this user is a part of. Now within the document screen, you can create folders as is necessary. All right, so let's create a new folder for human hiring and recruitment. And uh, this folder, automatically when you add a folder, there are no permissions granted on this folder. So a folder or a document without any permissions, everyone that has a login would get access to these permissions. All right, and let's go within the hiring and recruitment, and let's just upload a file here. So let's say this is our hiring system, right? So when we add a file within a folder, the file inherits the permissions that its parent folder has unless you go and set specific permissions for this file. So let's see here, if we notice that previously the hiring and recruitment folder has no permissions. Similarly, if you go in here, the new file that we added has no permissions. Let's go back and grant permissions to the hiring and recruitment. Let's say that our human resources team can view, update, and delete records from this folder. Now, the permissions inherit from each other. So if someone has update permissions, that means they also have view permissions. And if they can delete, it also means they can update and view. All right, so for the hiring and recruitment, let's say we have human resources can view and update. Our administrators can also view and update. And for marketing purposes, let's say our marketing team can view the hiring and recruitment folder. All right. Now, if we browse to this folder, we can see here now that automatically this file here, because we hadn't set any custom permissions on this file, it would inherit permissions from its parent. All right, let's add another file here, and let's call it our JD for a programmer, right? And we want everyone who has access to that, including our marketing team, to access that. But let's say our hiring system should only be accessed by the human resources team, right? So we can specify permissions there for this file only to be accessed by our human resources team, and it now has its own permissions. So let's go back here and say that admin is no longer, this user is no longer part of the human resources team. Because he's a part of the marketing team, he would still see the hiring and recruitment folder, but he no longer sees the hiring system, only the JD for programmers, which inherits the marketing permission from its parent, right? So the system automatically shows and hides files based on the permissions that the user has. You can create as many folders as you'd like, as many subfolders, and configure permissions on each document or each folder. If you don't configure permission at the highest level here, right? Then anybody can access the folder and its subfolders. If you've configured the permission for a folder, then all subfolders and documents within that folder automatically inherit the permissions of its parent folder. To add new users, you can go to the user accounts page and you can create users and specify which permissions they have. So let's look at James Bond here. Let's go back and grant admin permissions to everything. We notice James Bond only has access to sales team and human resource team documents. So these are all the documents because admin has access to all. But let's go to James Bond account, right? So if we open James Bond account here, and we browse the documents for James Bond, we'll notice that he has hiring, sales, employee records, sales documents, but he does not have access to the passwords. And if we check passwords, only administrators and directors access passwords, and he has access to the other folders. Let's say that our sales documents, let's just review back what permissions James Bond has. He's a part of the sales and human resource team. All right, so let's say our marketing materials is only for our marketing team to view and update, and our administrators. All right, now if we go back to James Bond screen here, sorry, just to show you logging in as James Bond, and we refresh the page, you'll see that he no longer has access to marketing material. And that's a quick overview of the document management system. We also have document types. Document types are there for a broad or granular categorization of documents as is suitable for your organization, right? So there's no specifications on how to use this, but if you would like to categorize documents into different categories, you can go ahead and create your types or categories here, and when you're adding your documents or folders, you can specify which category they are a part of. Permissions are not associated with document types or enforced on document types. Permissions are only enforced in groups. So this here is a summary of our document module and how it works. In the future, we'll be adding to the dashboard recent file uploads, right? And probably a list of files without permissions. All right, and that's it in summary for our document management system.